Hey, welcome everybody. It's Don Giannetti at Lighting Essentials, and I am being joined today by John DeMato, New York City. I met John online. I've been watching his stuff, sort of stalking him from the distance there, because he's got such an interesting business model. I'm real excited for his business model, working with entrepreneurs and up and coming people who need a personal brand. Uh, Set of images. And I got to tell you, John, if I get back to New York, I think I'd hire you to do a set of images for me because your stuff's really great. And great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Don. And by the way, if that ever happens, you better wear that ensemble because I'm not shooting you in anything less. All
I'm
right.
not wearing pants.
That's a different kind of conversation altogether.
What made you come up with the? I know you worked with Pia Silva on her fantastic book,
I did. I did. Yes.
How to Badass Your Brand. We'll give a little shout out to Pia there. Um,
Yes.
and was that sort of a? Did that give you the impetus to start this?
Yeah, she reached out to me. I knew her through networking circles. I took photos of one of her one-day events, probably about 6 months prior to her reaching out to me, and she said that she had a challenge. She had her publishing company tell her that she had zero presence online and she needed to change that. She needed to create social media posts for it. And she had some ideas for what she wanted to write, but she had absolutely no idea in terms of the image content that she would need that would help propel this content out to be in front of people in the right way. So she asked me to kind of chip in and figure out what she needed. And at the time, I was going through what I now refer to as my creative crisis, which essentially was me looking at every single photographer who picked up a camera, who made $1 off their images. And I said to myself, when I would look at their work, hey, I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. And I just kind of chased the wind for about 2 years. And towards the tail end of it, that's when Pia came into focus with this project. And by extension, as I was conceiving these ideas and coming up with the way that we were going to create these images, I realized during her session, hey, this is actually a pretty good idea. I think this is something that I could do for other people in the same position. People who are some kind of a coach or a author or some kind of person who needs a lot of image content in order to present their themselves online consistently, and that is where it came from.
I think it's so interesting because this is not Unsplash where a blogger can go and get a picture of something for it. This is pictures of themselves, of, of
Yes.
their person, that personal brand approach. Do you get pushback from people? Not necessarily your clients. Obviously, your clients have bought into it, but do you get pushback from other photographers or folks thinking that this whole personal brand thing is kind of a fad or something?
uh no, I get more copycats than anything, Don, and quite frankly, I'm flattered by it. And I don't worry about that, because the thing that I've hung my hat on, um, is that the way that I put together these packages and these projects for people is that it's through they're getting their attention. They're gaining my attention because they're reading my stuff and it's in my voice. So at the end of the day, you could shoot similar stuff. It doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, what you're really trying to do is build that connection with the client. And that's really what draws people in. And that's, we could have the same portfolio, but if you're a schmuck to that person, it really doesn't matter. They're going to go with the other person.
Yeah, and looking at some of the work that you've done, and we'll have a link in the description below, um, so that you can go and see John's work. Looking at the work that you do, it's very personable. I'm not sure that everybody. I'm not sure that copycats can do everything that you do. Um, because you approach it from such a personal level. Each of the people that you shoot differently. You shot Pia much differently than John Andrews.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, and the John Andrews stuff just knocks me out. I just think, I mean, he's got to be thrilled with that work. That's just awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. He was very happy. Yes. And really what it boils down to is, um, when we're doing this stuff, I approach it from the perspective of a television producer, from a person who spent almost 20 years behind a video camera shooting talk show stories, very emotional stories, very uh, passion and all kinds of deep-seated emotions going on. And when I did all of that stuff, I thought I was kind of done with that. But what actually ended up happening is when I started to realize the work that I was doing with the speakers, the authors, the coaches, the different types of high-level business owners, I realized that we want to make our clients not just think, we want them to feel. When they feel something, they're in much more of a buying position. There creates a deeper sense of rapport and connection. The trust factor grows exponentially. And as a result, I tapped into all of those techniques and approach to these projects in the same way that I did with the video projects, and getting those close-ups and really going after expression and leveraging lighting in a way that truly helps convey a sentiment that is being put forth in the story below the caption of these pieces. And yeah, emotion is a huge piece for me. Vanity is important. We want them to look good, but that's only a foundational element. The piece that really matters the most is getting elements of their personality and having that emotion and showing a spectrum of emotion throughout their image content portfolio so that you can really see that range. So whenever they have a story, it could be about anything. It could be something that's very reflective, something very vulnerable, something very joyous and happy. Regardless, they'll have images that will visually complement those stories. And that's the entire purpose of why I pick up a camera, to give those people that variety and those types of images.
Well, it's the story aspect that is so intriguing to me, because they're not just headshots. Yeah, you have when I'm looking at your different portfolios, you have a few headshots because they need headshots.
Yes.
But then you get shots of them looking at their phone and working on the computer and talking in a microphone and standing at a whiteboard and all of these things. Now, you do this in a set amount of time, right? You're not following them around for 6 months, finding them at microphones and stuff. So this is a production
Yes.
that you do.
Yes. Yeah.
Well thought out. I really, really think all of your people have got to be thrilled with it. And I love the way that you do it. Now, that part of that is you were a TV producer for 20 years, right?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you produce it like a TV show? I mean, are we storyboarding or shot listing, or are you going out and shooting by the seat of your pants? Like, let's try that. Let's try this, or both.
There is a definite method to the madness. I have a pre-session strategy call with every single client, and I mean, I have about 20, 30 questions I ask them, and it kind of unearths who they are, who they serve, why they do what they do. And once I figure that out, then there are other questions. And essentially what I'm trying to get at are the unique wrinkles, the subtle differences, or not differences, but the uniqueness to the way that they work. What work looks like to them, what brainstorming looks like to them, what does working with clients look like to them. And we create these lifestyle scenarios of them working or doing what they do, and we capture it. That now I do work off of a shot sheet. While I'm doing that pre-session call, I'm underneath it creating shot lists and all the different locations that come up. And when I'm knee deep in the session, 9 times out of 10, I'm improvising as well. but I don't like to improvise and just show up and hope for the best. We're showing up with a plan, and then we improvise off the plan 100% of the time.
So you're working with wardrobe and all of those, making sure, you know, I've been a people shooter for long enough to know that sometimes people come to a shoot with their clothes in a bag.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Which is always a sign that it's not going to be as good a day as I expected.
Well, in my case, everybody shows up with at least 2 bags, and it actually does work out because I stress for them to bring as much crap as they can, especially with layers, because what I'm trying to accomplish is not the one-day thing. What I'm trying to accomplish is giving their audience an impression that this is, in fact, over the course of several months, because that's how many months these images are going to be leveraged. Sure. So as a result, even it's as I was just shooting someone a couple of days ago, and when we were at his office, he had a bag of shirts. We went through all 4 or 5 of those shirts. Then when we got to his house, he had his whole setup there. So as we're doing stuff, change your shirt, change your pants, change your shoes, keep going, keep going, keep going. Yeah. Because that variety really, really adds to the spice of the image content portfolio.
It really does. You know, when you're looking at them on your site, you kind of realize, I mean, we're all, you know, you and I are photographers, so you kind of look and you go, okay, well, this was probably shot in a day. However, when you take them apart and you put them separate, they could have been shot over a period of a year.
And then when you factor in the other point that they're not just posting branded lifestyle portraits, they're posting selfies, they're posting graphics, they're posting links to their blogs that have thumbnails that have nothing to do with the stuff that was shot. It automatically stretches the life of these things out exponentially. And I encourage all of my clients to mix it up, because they don't want to just put a feed of 100 shots of them looking into the camera or doing something over and over and over again. It's make you lose your mind.
Let me. I know we've got photographers that are going to be watching or listening to this. Let me ask you about rights, the rights that you grant them. Are these images licensed, or are they pretty much have a great time?
Yeah, it's a grab. I mean, for the branded lifestyle portrait packages, it's implied that they have free and unlimited use with whatever they want. It's a part of the deal. When it comes to when I'm shooting events for thought leaders, speaker events, author events, whatever the case may be, if it's a book signing, and they want to use stuff that's shot at the event. The idea being that if you use these for social, it's included. If you want to put this on a book, or you want to print this, or you want to use this for much more, then, you know, we have to talk about that separately. Yeah. I actually just had this conversation this morning with someone who I'm going to shoot in a month or so. And yeah, it's a case-by-case basis, really. And it also depends upon the relationship that I have with that person with respect to if it's recurring work, if it's something where it's a one-off, or, you know, all of those factors come into play for me.
Sure. And that to me, that makes a lot of sense. There's some premium usage involved there. So, you know, Instagram, Facebook, you know, knock yourselves out. But yeah, the book cover, that's a different animal. And the value.
Except when it's the portrait sessions, because in that case, that's when I know that that's what they're using it for, and it's kind of already built in.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah. If you know in advance, then you build it in. Yeah. I don't like to blindside my clients with things, so I try to spell everything up, but I don't want to be blindsided either. You know, that little portrait that we did. Oh, by the way, I'm, you know, doing a international book printed in 18 languages, and we stuck it on the back. Isn't that great?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thanks for the heads up, guy.
Thank you. You know, some people talk about, you know, return on investment for photography.
Yes.
And I hear a lot from photographers that go, well, you know, photography's dead. You can't make a living at photography. And, everybody's a photographer, and I bristle at that because the first thing they teach you in school is writing. And I don't think all the authors out there are concerned that every seventh grader is learning how to write. So everybody's a writer now. That just doesn't carry any weight. What it does is it just shows to me how important visuals and photography has become. And
yeah,
the need for more and more photographs is growing every day. It's not going away. It's growing. If you can get to a certain level in it, then you can command money for what you do. If you get higher, you can command more money for what you do. But what is the return on investment in personal branding photographs? Is there a short run to it? Is there a long tail to it? Is there how you see it anyway?
The way that I approach it within my own business and the way that I educate my clients as well as the photographers in the community that I run is this. If you're expecting to get short-term success off of social media, then you're not going to get what you paid for, because social media and working with personal branding imagery and creating this memorable and referable online presence is a long game. It's not something that's gonna and it's not something that you could even say, okay, well, if I put in 2 years, it's gonna work. I've been at this niche that I've been doing for almost 2.5 years, and we're still growing. We're still working on getting visibility. We're still working on trying to get to the levels at which that I have set goals for and I want to be. I'm not quite there yet, but am I making a living? Can you make a living as a photographer? Absolutely. I live in one of the most expensive cities in the world. I'm here. I'm here right in front of you. The point is that it's not about worrying about what everybody else is doing. It's not worrying about people with, if you're a professional photographer and you're getting nervous about people using iPhone photos, then you need to think about being in another business, because quite frankly, you don't have the stones to handle it and you shouldn't be here.
And, some things aren't going away. And, I'm sorry, but iPhones are here to stay and people are doing great work. I just saw somebody did a side-by-side test with a 5D Mark IV and a Google phone. And image quality, pretty comparable, especially on the web. So it goes right back. It's still going to always go back to what did you shoot, what was your subject matter, and how well did you shoot it. That's it.
And when it comes to being able to attract clients, it's about creating that connection with people. It's about the work is important. The work will always be important, because if you are a photographer that's not putting out the type of work that's going to resonate with at least one subset of folks out there, you're not going to get work. That's a fact. But once you're at a certain level, and we're starting to parse hairs over the type of stuff that we're seeing out there, then it becomes a matter of personal connection. And that's when, in addition to illustrating your expertise and illustrating, your methodology, your personality, a combination of all of these different things rolled up into a brand that is you, an online presence that presents you powerfully and purposefully. And once you have all of that stuff put together, it doesn't matter how good the Google phone is. No one gives a shit. What people care about is that they're being taken care of, that they're given the content that they need in order to get them in front of the people that they serve. Exactly. And your phone or your camera, it doesn't matter what it is. You need a person behind there to drive the car and make sure that that person gets exactly to where they want to go. And you're not going to get that with technology alone. That has never been the solution, and it will never be the solution. It is about the operator. When I'm out shooting, I'll shoot like an event or something with speakers, and sometimes the people will look at the pictures, and I'll often get the, wow, look at that picture. That's an amazing camera. And my response every single time is, yeah, the operator's not that bad either. Because I can hand you that camera, you would not know what the hell to do with anything.
Right.
It's not about the camera. It's about the person behind the camera.
I realized earlier this week that I have been photographing for over 50 years, half a century. I like to refer to it as half a decade because that makes me seem so much younger. But
Sure.
I've been 51 years behind the lens.
Wow.
So when someone says to me, "Oh, great camera," at this point in my life, I go, "Yep." It's just keep on walking. I don't care.
Yeah. That's funny.
I've explained it too many. What was it? You've read Mark Manson's famous book, right? Mark Manson, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a...
Yes.
Yeah,
I've
and I thought,
it.
Boy, I'm just running out of those, so I don't give. I'm fine with it. I don't have any left to give about that. But it is interesting. And you're right. People don't care if it's an iPhone or a Google phone or a 5D Mark IV. They don't care. If it's a Leica, they don't care. What they care is, does this move me? Does this do the thing? I saw a video of a woman, I think she's from Sri Lanka, and she's climbed every tallest mountain on the continent, all 7 continents. She's climbed to the top of the tallest mountain on that continent.
Wow.
And the video is just beautiful. And it was shot on an iPhone 6. And the video, and you look at it and you go, well, that's really cool, shot on an iPhone 6, but that has nothing to do with the video. It's a beautiful video, period. It could have been shot on a Red. Who cares? The story is what mattered. And I think when we talk about return on investment, especially with photography, is that your words and your phrases and all of those marketing things that we do, they can come up and they can go down because we're always constantly replace them. But your visuals are something that can really connect with people beyond words. If I have a blog and I want to connect with somebody in France, I don't speak French, and maybe I can get Google Translate to do it, but I don't speak French. So photographs speak all languages. Everybody gets it. Yeah. And I think that's the long tail of the whole thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that that's the big piece that a lot of people miss. I think they get so caught up on making sure that they look good, but they forget about the value that those images provide with respect to capturing those special moments. Capturing those moments. A client said to me once, you make moments matter when you capture them. And I never thought of it that way before. But when you think about it, it resonates, doesn't it? It's like making moments matter because you're there. But I see it more as being a compliment to the moment and actually capturing that moment for that person and not making it matter because it's captured. It's because it matters that it's important to be captured. But that subtle tweak still resonates regardless, within a similar respect.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Dave Vitale. Is it Vitale? Dave Vitale?
Yeah, Dave Vitale, yes.
Dave Vitale. And these are not big shots. These are not hero shots. These are, squatting down, talking to a little kid, playing a game, working on the phone with an important message on it. These are tiny moments that happen in everybody's day all the time. And yet you catch them and allow them to take those moments and expand it. That moment now can be a blog post. It can be an Instagram post. It can drive home. He's software developer, right?
He works with daycare centers and he works for the security systems.
Right. So anything he does, these little moments become instantly big hero shots when combined with talking about what he's doing with kids. Exactly. And I think that's a pretty good, distinct way of presenting visuals here.
It is because it's very personal.
It is personal. It is.
it's one of those things, like, as I said before, with regard to trying to find those unique wrinkles. I mean, this is a unique wrinkle in his day. He likes to, as part of what he does when he goes to sites, different daycare centers, you know, he chimes in with the kids. He loves the kids. And when we were there, I'm like, we need to get some photos of you with the kids. And especially because he's like this giant, massive dude, and these kids are like so tiny. Just the visual contrast alone is like gentle giant, you know, mushball kind of thing. And that's exactly what we want, because his background is not exactly mushy, working as a contractor for the government. So when you see this stuff and you have this balance, and then when you listen to his story, he started doing this because he had a son. And once that happened, the switch flipped. The contracting stuff is kind of in the background, and now this thing with the kids is now in the foreground. And when you capture these types of images, it really takes it home to see his personal trajectory as a human being, as an entrepreneur, and you really get a deeper sense of who this person is and what motivates him. So that's what those did
And
for him.
this you do with you discover this through your onboarding system,
Yes.
the questions.
Well, for him, I've known him for 12 years, 13 years, going back to my days in television production, because I met him through TV. And so I already knew his story and I knew where he was coming from. But for every other client, yeah, it's through the onboarding, it's through the strategy call, figuring these things out.
How open are your clients generally? Because with 20 years experience in television and as a photographer and looking at your work, you obviously know how to tell a story. You know it. In fact, you tell a story through a series of images, but you also tell stories with those single images, those moments we're talking about. Yeah. How open are they for your input? In other words, I think we need to do this for this reason. There's it.
They're extremely open because they're already qualified, because they've seen my work on social. They see my thinking, my process, the methodology behind these sessions, that it's not, let's just go figure it out. We're going to go to the park and whatever. That there is a very definitive process and framework that I have in place for the way that I create these session experiences for people and where we shoot and all of that jazz. So there is no pushback. There is an expectation on 9 out of 10 clients that I'm going to be imparting all of this stuff based solely on what they say and not what I think. It's based on what they say, translated through the brain filter, kind of spit out like, all right, this is how it should be. And I don't really get pushback on that. The most pushback that I get relates more to their mindset in front of the camera, because they have their issues of the way that they look, and that's a whole different conversation. But that's usually where I get some kind of pushback, or, oh, I don't know about that, I don't like how that looks, or blah, you know, all that kind of head garbage that they spit at me for 4 or 5 hours.
That's interesting. That's interesting. You must instill a lot of confidence in them as you're building up to the shoot.
Yeah.
How many contacts do you have with them before that you get to the actual point where you're pulling out the camera?
Depending on which service they book, if it's just photos or if it's photos and idea generation and content creation, 2 to 3. That's on the phone, not emails. That can be a couple more. But generally speaking, I get a vibe for the person within the first couple minutes of the initial, warm-up call, and just kind of feel where they're at. Because the first thing that comes out of their mouth is usually where they found me and why they're calling me. And once I know those 2 things, I can figure out the rest of their personality based on the way that they're talking to me.
Sure. And
more importantly, how they're responding to the way that I talk, because I don't change the way that I talk really for anybody. I talk, I curse, I don't limit it. Obviously if there's children in the room, I'm not going to curse. But having said that, it's all about qualifying them beforehand and getting a feel for them.
That's excellent. And that builds the confidence that they have then to listen to you when you're making the shots. You know,
If
we're going to have a lot of photographers watching this, and probably 90% of them are going to copy you, John. So, uh,
God bless them.
but maybe not 90%, maybe 77.3. I don't know. It's a statistic. We make that stuff up. But so, you know, we're going to want to talk a little bit about your gear because it's a very unique kind of thing. I see with Pia's images, you're in a studio. But for others, you're out on location. So talk to me just a little bit about what your gear, your production, your bag is when you're doing this and how much you prepare for the individual shoots.
My bag stays exactly the same pretty much for every single shoot. I go out with, I have my D5, my Nikon D5. When I go on a travel shoot, my backup is my D4. And I use 4 lenses in every portrait shoot. We start off with the 24-70. I do headshots with an 85-1.8. I shoot a lot of stuff with the 80-200 because I love how it compresses. But my favorite lens to whip out and use is the 60mm macro. And I like to use it as a portrait lens. I like to get up in people's faces when they're typing on the keyboard. I'm 2 inches away from their hand, getting those cool details. I love that lens. It's actually a lot more versatile than I used to think it was because I like the look of how the selective depth of field, especially with what I'm doing. I love it because, you know, there's a lot of loose creativity, room for creativity and where I'm going with the stuff that I do, especially with such a high volume. And as far as lighting is concerned, one light, B1, 2-foot octa, egg crate, sometimes on, most of the time on, sometimes off, and I'm blending with ambient. That's it. That's it. I don't go crazy. If I'm doing event work, I'll use a on-camera flash and I won't have the B1 if I'm shooting that kind of stuff, or if I'm shooting some kind of like a webinar thing where they're working for real and they're going to use these candid portraits of them working, then we'll go with the hot shoe flash. But otherwise, that's it.
It's a simple kit.
Yes. For many reasons. One of them being I'm in New York City. I don't really want to drag a bunch of crap on the train. I'm really tired. Secondly, and more importantly, for the aesthetic purpose, I don't want to overpower this thing and make it too flashy or showy or too much. It's not my style. It's not what I like. And when I'm talking to people who are all about authenticity in some shape or form, be it the way they write, be it the way that they speak, be it the way of how they coach. It's about some kind of transformation that they're offering people if you follow me. If I start glamming them up, there is this subconscious feeling of trying too hard or not being real because it feels really glamorized. There is a time and a place for that kind of work, and I love that stuff. I love it. It's beautiful. But it does not belong being used on a social media feed within that context. You don't do that. If you want to show off a showy glam shot every now and then, I just had a session, it was wonderful, I feel so grateful, I feel confident, blah, 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 blah. That kind of thing, that's awesome. But when you do it every single shot, it feels fake. I don't do that.
Yeah, I just absolutely totally agree with you. I've always found that when you're working with amateur people that are not, you know, professional models or professional talent, the more gear you have, the more intimidated they are. And it doesn't really matter what that gear is. I mean, big lights on stands and booms, that's intimidating to a lot of folks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they start overthinking what they're doing because they're thinking it's a more important photograph because you've got 2 lights on a boom and an assistant and somebody over here holding a flag, and all of a sudden they're on the spot. I think your way of working, the way I would do it as well, is, you know, keep it as simple a kit as possible and get that ambient light in there for as much as you possibly can do. because they're not going to feel intimidated.
And because remember, Don, the most important thing about that session is not how amazing I feel about the photos that I just took. It's about how that person feels about how they are in those photos. As a result, spend less time focusing on your f-stops and your shutter and how many lights you're using and all this other stuff, and focus more on creating a rapport with that person, because they need to look emotional in a million different ways. And that's a lot of work. That's a lot harder than focusing on just keys and fills and bounce and skylights and all this other bell and whistle stuff that has a place in a lot of areas within photography. But honestly, when you're focusing on this kind of stuff for people and you're capturing this very vulnerable type of expressions and emotions, strip all that stuff away, get all the extra people out of the shot, focus in the moment, talk to them like a human being, and make sure that they feel like you're holding their hand throughout the whole process. That's more important.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely. I have a theory about portraiture, and that is every time we add another light after one, we remove the vulnerability of the person. They become less and less accessible.
Yeah, that's an awesome way to put it, Don. That's awesome.
All of a sudden, they start looking something else, because our minds, we've been looking at light since we were 3 days old. 3 days old, we started figuring out light and shadow and darkness and brightness, and wet things shine and dry things don't, and all of those things. We've been doing this our whole lives. Yeah. And when we start looking at photographs and they're lit with a whole lot of lights, we think of them as something other than here's Pia teaching a class, which is a great shot of Pia, but you could ostensibly go in there with 3 grid spots and a snoot and create something really awesome, but it wouldn't be Pia teaching a class. It would be something else that we would not feel part of.
Becomes cosmetic, and it becomes aesthetic priority rather than emotional priority. It's about the look, and it's not about
emotion. Every light you add, you take emotion away. It's almost like one for one. You just take it away. I remember those. I don't know if you've ever seen the last photo shoot of Marilyn Monroe,
no,
where she's rolling up in the sheets. I believe it was Bert Stern. But she's just on some bed sheets with window light. And they're absolutely sensational photographs, just killer photographs. And I thought, I wonder how different it would have been if there would have been a kicker light over here and another kicker light down here and 3 filled cards and a shiny board. We wouldn't have that. It would not be that same emotional. I mean, knowing that it was her last photo shoot, and we bring that with it, it wouldn't have mattered. They would have been glitzy, glammy, unemotional photographs. Whereas they're very accessible. They're very emotional. And I think that comes off in all of your work, John. I think you do a great job. Sounds like I'm the head of the John DeMato fan club. I mean,
well, you'd be the first one. Thanks, man.
Is there a T-shirt or anything I can get?
Yeah, we're gonna get you one of these. We're gonna get you. Yeah, absolutely sure. We're gonna fly it out to Arizona for you.
Well, I find people working online doing things a little bit differently, and I just get excited about it. And when I saw what you were doing, I got your name through Pia's book, and I flipped over and I said, this guy's doing something. I mean, I don't know anybody else who's doing it, John. So I know you said there are people trying to copy you. I don't know too many people who do.
It's a little tongue in cheek, but yeah.
I don't know too many people who do 2 blog posts a week, buddy.
3, not 2.
Yeah, I can't count math. You said there'd be no math, John. Yeah, 3 blog posts a week, buddy. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. in the interests of getting my name out there, I somehow, some way became a writer. And I written an ebook. I write all of that. I write all the social. But what I've found is that it is another. Okay, writing to me is not just, okay, I have to get this crap out there and I need to post and I need to be consistent. It's not just that. What I've discovered about the process of writing is that it's not only a tool for me to disseminate my expertise and allow people to get a sense of who I am and why I do what I do, but it's also a catharsis. It's my therapy. It's a way for me to work out new material that I may or may not present on stage. It's a way for me to kind of work out ideas that I haven't quite figured out yet, but I'm going to write about it because then it forces me to think about it while also double dipping as content because it still will be valuable to someone. For example, I'm thinking of dipping my toe back in the video water, but not exactly as a practitioner anymore. I want to come in more of an advisory or consultant role, and I want to start to possibly create a methodology around all of the types of video that the people that I serve can leverage because, you know, I can talk about how to create an interesting Facebook Live without doing Facebook Lives because I understand what's behind what makes a successful Facebook Live because it's the same thing that all good video is built on, great storytelling and emotion. So, but the point is that I haven't written anything about it yet, but I think I'm going to use my blog as a way over the next couple of months to kind of work out the material. And that's one of the great benefits of writing is that it has many uses while also being content. And it's something that I think a lot of people and a lot of photographers, because if I read another what you should bring to your headshot session, I'm going to throw my computer out the window because it's just the same crap recycled over and over and over and over again. Or if I read, had a great shoot with blah, 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 blah today, look at the shot, no one cares because why should they care about this? You know, talk about, you know.
See, that's a real sore spot for me when someone posts, I did some great shots of so-and-so today. It was such a great session. And I think to myself, show us the pictures. We will decide if it's great or not. I don't decide if my work is great. I put it out there. If other people think it's great, fine. It's just my work. I don't decide it's great or not. It's a binary decision. Is it too crappy to show people or is it less crappy and I can show people? It's binary. So great is in their mind.
Right. And by the same token, you're touching on another point, which is, you know, this work is not about you. When you say I had a great session with and nothing else other than metadata, you're missing the entire point of what social is for. You're trying to, I mean, unless if you're a commercial artist and you're working under contract and you're doing that completely different. But if you're working in a B2C capacity, you're getting individual clients, you need to leverage your work in a way that gives the audience member the opportunity to think about themselves in that position, in that photo. And the way that you do that is you show the good work, great. And if it's great and people like it, that's fine. But more importantly, what was the challenges before that session happened? What were their reservations? What was holding them up from getting this done a year ago? Talk about their mindset. Talk about your prep. Talk about things that happened in that session that could have made this thing go haywire or sideways, but you pulled it together because of A, B, and C, and here's the testimonial, and there you go. Tell a real story, and don't just put the photos up there.
Yep. We provide solutions, man.
Yeah.
We provide visual solutions for visual problems. That's what we do. We're not making great shots for us. You know, I've been a photographer for, as I mentioned, a hell of a long time. And I've met a lot of photographers. And I find that there are a good amount of photographers who do photography for their edification. The subject matter is just there so that they can feel good about shooting it. You can tell these are the photographers who shoot a lot of, generally, I want to say the girl shooters. They shoot a lot of girls, but they never deliver prints. They never get the photos back to the people they shot because it wasn't about the photograph. It was about the experience of making the photograph.
Mm-hmm.
And if your focus is on the experience of making the photograph, you have a glass ceiling, and it's fairly low. You're never going to get past that glass ceiling. If it's all about the experience, what it has to be about is the experience of delivering great images that are useful to your client. I don't care if it's a commercial still life shot or a headshot or whatever. You deliver an image that is good and useful for your client. I would rather my clients win all the awards than me win the awards. I remember when Lexus's very first commercial came on TV. You were probably a kid, but it was a beautiful commercial. But absolutely nobody who was polled knew what it was for.
Mm-hmm.
It was some reeds brushing on the highway and something come by and the logo was kind of spinning a little bit. They never said, oh, it's for a new car or anything. They just did it. Now that ad won awards all over the world.
Right.
And Lexus didn't sell a single car from that ad because nobody knew what it was for. That's not what I want to do. I don't want to make art that for me. I'm a commercial photographer. I want them to win a ton of awards. And the biggest award I want them to win is that they sold more stuff and had a great quarter because they used my pictures. That's what I want.
Yeah. And listen, if you want to go scratch the creative itch, listen, we're all photographers. We're artists here. I get that. I shoot everything. I don't care. I love it. But that doesn't mean there's a time and a place to satisfy your own creative urge. And then there's a time and a place to merge your creative urge with the needs of those you serve in a way that you make awesome stuff with them. They're going to use it and it's valuable. Yep. So there is that give and take, and it's not about what you want. It's about what they need.
It's exactly. Yeah. I love that. Hey, John, it's been fun chatting with you. I know you've got another show coming up here. So
I do.
Which is that's your Facebook group.
Yeah, the private group that we're doing the live for photographers. Did I tell you the name? Screw the metadata.
That's awesome.
You get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I used to have a line of T-shirts that said "Skip Intro."
I like that.
I never embraced Flash ever. I thought Flash. When I owned the ad agency, I had several designers, and they were really good in Flash, and I was always like, okay, but we got to have a big skip intro button on it because when you hit somebody's website and their name comes in one letter at a time, spinning from the side, hey,
that's
hey, I say, dudes, that was boring in PowerPoint in the late '80s. It's still boring on the web. Nobody wants to see it.
Exactly.
So yeah, I sold a lot of skip intro shirts. Glad to have that. Listen, I'm going to get you to send me those links so I can put them down in the description. People can come over and check your website out, check everything out, maybe join your group and be involved. So this is John DeMato. John, you're in New York City, in Queens.
I'm in Astoria, Queens, born and raised, my friend.
Wow, cool. Queens, there's a train station in Queens, right?
There's many train stations in Queens.
So yeah, I'm from Phoenix. A train station in town is just exciting for me right there.
Yeah, we have 2.8 million people in this borough alone. So we're a little busy. We got a couple trains.
Wow, pretty cool. I'm going to be back in the New York area sometime in the fall. I'm going to look you up, and we're going to go and have a beer.
For Photo Plus? Are you going to be here for Photo Plus?
Generally, I don't do those things. I may.
Okay.
Generally, I don't. I've purchased all I'm going to purchase for quite a while.
Yeah.
It would be fun. I'm thinking about just coming back just to hang with a lot of photographer friends that I have.
That's really what it's about. It's about the hang. It's not about the crap that they're trying to sling.
Absolutely. So I'm really, really thinking about that. And then once it's over, renting a motorcycle and riding up to Maine
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
might be
awesome.
fun.
Well, you stop by here. We'll have some drinks and we'll talk more photos.
Sounds good. John, thank you. I know we're going to do this again. We talked about that. We talked about doing more than one of these. And I think people are going to want to hear more of what you have to say. So thank you, sir. I look forward to talking to you again.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, Don. Appreciate it.
You bet.